It's a pleasure to welcome back Adam Regan. He covers the high school sports scene for the News Press. Follow him on Twitter at NP_Adam Regan. Adam, top of the morning to you. Thanks for agreeing to do this. How are you?
Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for having me on.
Well, it's our pleasure. And we found out during the break that, I don't know if we can get you a raise, but maybe we can get you a medal. So you and Dave LaRosa both took in all 5 hours of that FHSAA meeting yesterday. I'm telling you, somebody owes you a dinner, man.
Well, it wasn't just me and Dave LaRosa. It was 4,000 other people that were live streaming it on YouTube. There was a lot of interest, I guess.
I would almost, I don't think you could last and go through them all. The comments themselves must have been hysterical throughout. But Adam, give me the highlights of how this all went down, and inevitably when the medical people are saying not start, what were the reasons that those who chose to not listen and start practice on Monday, what did that end up boiling down to? If you can compress that 5 hours as best you can.
Well, Mark, you brought up the sports medicine medical advisory committee, and they basically came out with a report that really wasn't distributed to some of the board members until Monday afternoon or so. But they basically said that high-risk sports like volleyball and football should be suspended indefinitely. And they discussed that report before they went through the motions to bring back high school sports. And really, they were just saying, "Oh, we'll take them as information, and we're going to move on to make the motions," which they did. And we're going to have high school sports practice on July 27th.
Which is Monday, obviously. And so now, Adam, there was a report out there, I think while this meeting was going on, someone who covers high school sports in the state said that there's word that there were 7 counties on the west coast of Florida that were talking about breaking away and doing their own thing if the vote went a certain way. A, were you familiar with that? And B, any of those counties ours?
I hadn't heard that. That was Bob Putnam, former preps writer for the Tampa Bay Times, who does his own thing now. That was the first I was hearing of it. I don't think that any of those counties are Lee or Collier County. I think today Lee and Collier County might be pretty happy that high school sports practices are starting July 27th and are probably very, very happy members of the FHSAA.
Really? So you think at the end of the day that Lee and Collier were in lockstep with the FHSAA yesterday?
I'm just going on what I've heard from many of the football coaches around Lee County and Collier County that they're itching to go. They, think that the safety procedures are well thought out, and they've been working with them for the last couple of weeks with conditioning and stuff like that. And I think they're ready to go.
Adam, what are these safety procedures? I mean, it almost sounds like an oxymoron. We're talking about football here. I mean, these are guys banging into one another, sweating on one another, breathing on each other. I mean, we had, I don't want to say some fun, but we made sure to point out a couple of weeks ago when the Raptors were in town at FGCU as to what the protocols were in place. They were not running up and down the court playing ball. There were no more than four guys on the court at a single time, and they all had their own ball and their own basket to shoot at. I mean, how is practice going to be normal? What procedures and protocols are in place?
The procedures and protocols that are in place are temperature checks every day before practice. Obviously, they have a list of questions they ask every single kid before they can actually set foot into the athletic facility. And I mean, that's really all they're doing for conditioning. I mean, they're staying 6 feet apart and everything like that. But you make a really good point, David, that, football, you're going to be hitting each other. Defensive linemen and offensive linemen are going to be, all on top of each other. And then that's not even talking about competition when you've got, 15 players in a dog pile, after a fumble.
All right. This question was asked by one of our listeners, and I'm going to give it to you to see if you have any thoughts on this. But there's a lawsuit by the Florida Education Association, and he simply asked, how will this impact the availability of coaches who are teachers and union members? That does seem to be a bit of a conflict right now, doesn't it?
I would say so. I would say if teachers aren't comfortable coming back to the classroom and the union is wanting to file a lawsuit, that just leaves more questions than I can really answer.
He's Adam Regan. He covers high school sports for the News Press. You can follow him on Twitter at NP_Adam Regan. When they were talking, was the concern the kids? Because there's a lot of data to say that, listen, if you're 18, 19 and under, there's not a lot of risk here. People have gone to great lengths saying that you're at more risk probably driving to practice than you are of getting the coronavirus and something bad happening to you at practice. But obviously, coaches are older. In some cases, a lot older. Officials, in many cases, are a lot older. I mean, how much were coaches and officials discussed? And did the FHSAA dip their toes in the fans and how many should be at the games question at all, Adam?
Well, it's funny you bring up officials, David. And obviously, down in this area in Southwest Florida, we've had some, the officials striked before last season, but officials were not brought up at this meeting. They weren't mentioned until about 3 hours into the meeting, and it was only brought up maybe twice. So no, I don't think officials were really considered during this board meeting. During the 3 task force meetings, there was an official who represented it, who basically said that we need to have statewide safety protocols put into place before my guys can go out there on the sidelines. And as you said, those are older people that are more at risk. And I don't think coaches were brought up either. One of the guys driving the train to get high school sports practicing next week was a football coach, Bobby Johns, from up in the Panhandle. He's the one that made the successful motion that was accepted. So I didn't really hear any discussion about football coaches. There was a lot of talk about athlete safety. Chris Patrica from down here in Southwest Florida, who's a school board member in Lee County, asked Jennifer Maynard, who's a doctor for the Mayo Clinic and is the chair of the Sports Medicine Advisory Council, if athletes who contract COVID are at risk of bringing it into the school, which, the schools are in a big thing where they're trying to figure out the best way to bring kids back into the school safely. So that was a big discussion, and it really had no bearing on the decision to bring back high school sports. I think that really what was driving the train was, that the calendar is what it is. They provided some flexibility to teams that won't be able to start on time. I think they were kind of really talking about South Florida, Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade County. They're giving them a little flexibility. If they don't start on time, they're given the option to play regular season games all the way up through the end of the state series. They can opt out of the state playoffs and, play regular season games.
All right. Was there, and I'd kind of read this, and you listened to the whole thing. Was there any talk of the financial implications to athletic departments in the NFL and in college football? I mean, we know how much football drives, the money train drives this. Was that at all any part of the discussions?
It was brought up that football basically drives the budget for every school's athletic departments. The non-revenue sports are basically funded by football and by the gate, and there was talk about losing games and therefore losing money in athletic budgets. So yes, that was considered.
Was there talk of shortening the schedule in any way, shape, or form? Because we're hearing that in college football, where some conferences have canceled non-conference games. So a 12-game season could be anywhere from 8 to 9 or maybe 10. Is there any talk about that with high school sports, or getting rid of non-district games, and then this way you've got, say, 9 or 10 weeks to schedule your 5 or 6 games? Was any of that brought up?
Not across the board in the state. I think the main thing people need to understand is, Florida is a very big state. I mean, there are different areas all over the place, some that are hard hit by this and some that aren't. Really, what the FHSA board is trying to do is give every single school and school district the flexibility. So there are some schools that may play only 6 games. There are some school districts that may play 10 games, but there's nothing across the board saying that we're going to shorten the season to 8 games or we're going to shorten the season to 7 games and then we're going to go to the playoffs.
Adam, was there any talk of, I get that they're going to take temperatures when they come in, but we also have a lot of people, and particularly when we're talking about young people who are asymptomatic. Is there any talk of testing? And I'm guessing probably no because of money, but was it at least brought up that these athletes might need to be tested, or is that not at all being discussed?
Really, the only thing I heard about testing was during the fall sports task force meetings, the 3 before this board meeting was called, and that came from the gentleman who was representing the officials who wanted that. And obviously, nobody was thinking about how much money it is to test all of these athletes throughout the state. But yeah, that's the only thing I've heard of it, and I don't think it's feasible financially to do it. And I mean, I think that's a problem.
Adam, correct me if I'm wrong. The local school boards and districts, they have the authority to make whatever decision they want, right? The FHSAA may say, hey, you're allowed to start practice on Monday. You're allowed to go forward season as usual. But locally, just like the governor's office said, hey, school's going to start on time 5 days a week. And locally, school boards are like, well, okay, appreciate the suggestion. We're going to take it under advisement. They can do the same thing for sports, right? Lee, Collier, Charlotte counties don't have to start the season on time. They don't have to play a full schedule, right? They can do whatever they want.
Yep, they can do whatever they want. And I would say probably about 5 minutes after the board meeting concluded, the Orange County Public School District said, there's no way we're practicing on July 27th. It's not happening. So that's an example right there. Individual school districts and individual schools are, private schools are going to decide when they practice, and it's not going to be up to the FHSAA, and that's the way the FHSAA wants it.
All right, there's another meeting next week. What do you see, if anything, happening from that? Anything that you could surmise from last night's meeting when they get back together, the odds of a delay of the season?
That I can't give you. I know that a big point of contention in that meeting that's coming up is going to be the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee report that a lot of the board members didn't get a chance to digest before this meeting. So with the FHSAA, and from what I witnessed last night in this 5-hour board meeting, I think anything is possible. But from everything I've seen, and that's going off of comments made by Executive Director George Tallman, who really wants to stick to the sports calendar, if I was putting my money on it, I would say that practice is going to be happening on Monday.
Adam, appreciate your time. Sorry you had to sit through that 5-hour meeting. All right, my goodness. All right, get a steak dinner out of it or something. I'd submit a receipt, to be honest with you. I don't know if Goodnet will pay for it, but I'd submit something.
I'll do my best. I'll see what I can do.
Okay,
Dave, I'll need you to be a reference for me on that one.
Absolutely. We've got tape. We'll back you up. All right,
appreciate it.
We'll initial a receipt. I mean, we forged a few in our day. We can forge one for you.
Nice.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Adam. Adam Regan.
Take care, guys.
News Press, news-press.com. Follow him on Twitter, NP_Adam Regan. I thought I saw something yesterday where the end of this week, I think, is when the Lee County School Board has, their big powwow.
Yeah, Thursday. That's for school. Because the superintendent yesterday, I believe, because I get everything texted to me right away, Dr. Atkins is recommending delaying the start of school until August 24th or August 31st. The school board will make a final decision in a special meeting on Thursday. I received that text at 5:15 last night.
Those that have sent in questions, wondering about, coaches. Here's my experience. Coaches coach, in which literally, unless their doctor says, this is not a good idea for you, coaches coach. I mean, my mother, who's listening and watching on our Twitch TV channel, thanks, Mom, sent in a text to say, hey, even in Jersey, when we struck, the coaches coached. I mean, the teacher part of them may not be showing up to work, okay, but the coach part of them still coached. Showed up after quote-unquote school for practice and coached during games, even while they were on strike.
And it's been my experience just throughout life with youth coaches. And I have the utmost respect for 99.9% of them because they sacrifice a lot of time. They don't make anything, and they do it out of love. They truly do. But David's 100% right. The only thing they care about is coaching, whether it's hockey, football, golf, baseball, girls softball. It doesn't matter.
We'll be interested. Let's just walk through this hypothetical. Let's just say in Lee County, they push school back 3 weeks. I believe the high school football season starts the Friday before the Monday in which school is supposed to start. Now, just
like
because
the 28th of August would be the first Friday Night Lights, if you will, right?
I think it is.
I'm pretty sure.
I think the quote-unquote jamboree, with their preseason game, is on the 21st. But I thought the 28th was the first Friday of the high school football season. So that would bring an interesting situation. Would we play high school football in Lee County before we held a class? Now, this happens in college football all the time, and nobody seems to bat an eye. But I'm just wondering if that were to happen. Because I'm guessing, I'm going to go out on a limb, that if school gets pushed back, that sports won't. That's my guess. My guess is that actually they'll be like, well, actually practice has never been safer because we don't have school. That's my guess. Could be wrong. They could push sports back as well.
Yeah, that is from what I'm looking at, because I'm looking at North Fort Myers' schedule right now. I see a couple. I don't know which one of the jamborees though, because they start playing the 14th according to this. But I'm guessing that's the jamboree. So I think you're right on with that, David. I think you're right on.
So if school gets pushed back, will sports also get pushed back with it? I'm not so sure about that. It does lead into our poll question today. Your thoughts on the high school football season, and should it take place normally in the fall? Should it be pushed back? And we said push back post January 1. Or should it not happen at all? That's our poll question. That Mark Miller, the David Moulton on Twitter, millerandmoulton.com. For the record, and I'm fairly consistent about this, I have wanted to push the high school football season in Florida back for just about every day that I've lived here. I feel the first half of the season is nothing but rain and thunderstorm and lightning delays. And if there was a way, and there isn't, because you can't have seasons overlap that much, I've suggested they play Saturday mornings until October, till around Columbus Day, and then finish the season playing on Friday nights for the heat and the lightning and all that. And every time I wrote it in a column, I got laughed at and mocked. But
that's why I'm not talking now, because I'm not going to do that anymore.
Right. You can.
No.
You've done it before.
I'm done.
But how about this? And it's not going to happen, obviously, although you would think if it was possible to happen, it would be in a coronavirus year. And Pat Kerwin coming up in a moment. But if I suggested to you, let's switch the basketball and football seasons in the state of Florida for a variety of reasons. Is it crazy? Does it have some merit?
I said to you before, I think the one thing that would happen is the top 50 to 75 players in Florida would then not play football because they would already be in college. Florida's that good of a state in football. There are that many early enrollees that I think come from Florida schools. So you'd lose some really good players. Other than that, David, colleges would adjust to signing players, and they've pretty much already signed the guy anyhow. So, no, I don't think it's nuts. I know it'll never happen.